All right, today we are going to be looking at decimals and mixed numbers and comparing them. So you're going to be looking at decimals and fractions and comparing them. So I'm going to go ahead and just start us off with something simple. So I have 45 over 100 compared to 400ths. So I have 45 over 100 and 400ths. Here are the strategies that you should use when you're solving these problems. You need to turn these into the same. So you can either turn these both into decimals or both into fractions. It really just depends on what your preference is. If you like fractions and are more comfortable with those, then change this to a fraction and have, if you like decimals and are more comfortable with those, change this to a decimal and have 45 tenths or 45 hundredths as a decimal. Sorry, guys. And then, but if you prefer fractions, change this to a fraction. It really just depends on which one you prefer. You just need to change them both to the same so that it's easier for you to compare. So I can either turn this problem into 45 hundredths compared to 4 hundredths as a tenth and as decimals, or I can turn this into 45 hundredths compared to 4 hundredths written as a fraction. It doesn't matter, whichever one you prefer. So then I look at them and I compare, and it's the same. No matter what, same answer. So 45 hundredths is larger than 4 hundredths. All right, why don't you go ahead and try one of these really quick on your own? So I've got this one. All right, go ahead and try that one on your own. All right, so I have 7 tenths and 75 hundredths. So I can do one of two things. I can either change this both into fractions and have 70 hundredths compared to 75 hundredths, or I can change these both into decimals and compare 7 tenths compared to 75 hundredths as decimal. It doesn't matter. So if I want to make this a little bit easier for me, I can put a 0 there so I can see there's a 0 in the hundredths place and a 0 and a 5 in the hundredths place here. Either way, no matter what, we see that 7 tenths is less than 75 hundredths. Okay? So let's go ahead and up the ante a little bit and take a look at this problem. So I'm going to order from least to greatest. And here are my numbers. I have 2 tenths, 1 tenth, 33 hundredths, 12 hundredths, 21 hundredths, and 32 hundredths. All right, I have got a lot of numbers here, and I want to organize them from least to greatest. Now, I just have to make a decision. Am I going to make them all fractions, or am I going to make them all decimals? So, I mean, half of them are fractions and half of them are decimals, so either way, I only have to change 3 of them. I'm going to go ahead and keep practicing changing things into decimals and change them all into decimals. So I have 2 tenths, 1 tenth, that's 33 hundredths, 12 hundredths, 1, and 32 hundredths. Okay, but if you would have preferred fractions, you would have 2 tenths, 1 tenth, 33 hundredths, 12 hundredths, 21 hundredths, and 32 hundredths. So if you would change to fractions, you would see that you have 2 tenths here, but you can easily change this into hundredths just by tacking on those zeros, because 20 hundredths is equivalent to 2 tenths and 10 hundredths is equivalent to 1 tenth. So either way, doesn't matter. But you do want to put your final answer in the forms they were presented with. So I want to, when I order these, write that as a decimal, write that as a fraction. So let's go ahead and look at both and figure out which one is the smallest. So when I look here, I can see that the smallest has a 1 in the tenths place, and this one has 1 in tenths place. So this one has a 2 in a hundredths and a 0 in the hundredths. So I'm going to write this as 1 tenth, because in its original form, it was 1 tenth. Okay, so all of these are the equal forms. Okay, those are all equivalent. All equivalent. Okay, so I've taken care of this one. Now the next one would be 12 hundredths. So I'm going to write that back in its original form. And then I have, that one's 2 tenths. Well, that one's going to be larger or smaller than 21 hundredths. So 0.2. All right, then we would have our 21 hundredths. Then I have 33 hundredths and 32 hundredths. Well, 32 hundredths is smaller than 33 hundredths. So that is my problem from least to greatest. All right, let's go ahead and have you try one on your own now. So you are going to organize these from least to greatest. And here are your numbers. And these are going to be numbers that are improper fractions, so you will need to change them to proper fractions, some of them. 3 62 hundredths. 3 7 tenths. 3 85 hundredths. 38 tenths. And 364 over 100. You can do this. Go ahead and pay attention to what each thing is and go from there. Least to greatest. Try that on your own. All right, what I'm seeing here is all of these are somehow a form of 3 as a whole number. And I only have 2 here that are decimals, and the rest of these are fractions. But that one's an improper fraction. I'm just going to change them all to decimals. So for me, I'm going to change these all to decimals. Leave that as 3.62, 3 7 tenths, 3 85 hundredths, 38 tenths. So here I can go ahead and pull out 10 over 10, a 10 over 10, 10 over 10, and a 3 tenths. Oops, sorry, an 8 tenths. So 3 wholes and 8 tenths. Okay, so that would be equivalent to the fraction of 3 8 tenths, 364, 100 over 100, 100 over 100, 100 over 100, and then a 64 over 100. That would be equivalent to 3 64 hundredths, which would be equivalent to 3 64 hundredths. All right, so now I'm going to organize these from least to greatest, because that's what I've been asked, and I'm going to write them in their original form. So let's look for the least. This one is the least because it has a 6 in the hundredths place, and so does this, or in a tenths place. So does this one too, but this one has a 4 and this one has a 2. So I have 3 62 hundredths. And then I have 3 64 hundredths, and in its original form is 364 over 100. And then I have 3 7 tenths, 3.8 and 3.85. Well, that's going to be this one next, 38 tenths. And then finally, we have 3 and 85/100. So that is the order from least to greatest. Next, you will complete your exit ticket. So if you have any further questions after that, please let me know.